Welcome to Magical Aspirations, a podcast for magical people,
where we aspire to gather all of the knowledge that magic has to offer.
A place to illuminate and demystify all things magical.
We are your magical co-hosts. I am Annalisa.
Reverend Raven here.
Adriana.
Tune in every Tuesday where we're dropping new episodes every week about our own personal magical stories.
Have a spanking good time.
And sprinkle some interviews in between.
There is so much magic here. Keep coming back every week. Stay magical.
Stay magical.
Stay magical.
Okay, and we are live from the kitchen. Fish Tales with Fiskr. We are talking about the end of Pisces season here.
We're not cooking fish, we're cooking pork chops.
Since we're in Indiana in the winter. Unfortunately, we got snow here today, but we are March now.
Didn't catch up with that time change, huh?
Nope. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day here, but we got snow today, so my brain is thinking that it's February.
Like 70 yesterday.
Yeah, so... Yeah,
and I think it's like 70 on Tuesday.
The saying here in the Midwest is March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb. So that seems appropriate because we are getting our farm ready to bring some lambs there. So
it does. And April showers will bring May flowers as well.
So we're hoping for all of those good tidings in the spring here. This is our first spring up here in 9 years. So takes a little bit of getting used to. The winter was cold, but
the pollen's coming back.
Yeah, the pollen's coming back, and it seemed like we didn't have as many cold days as what I remember the last year that we lived up here. So
it's still very weird driving around and the leaves are on the ground and the trees are brown and there's not flowers. In New Orleans, part of what I loved about New Orleans is that it was green and flowery all year round.
Yep.
But it has been nice to have seasons again, too.
Yep. Just the adjustments and getting used to things, being a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And like there are seasons of our lives, too, that we're going through. And this is a new season for our life. Being somewhere that we can homestead, that is our newest goal and plan. We had dreams for the last few years about having a farm and living out in the country and things like that. And we didn't know how to manifest those dreams until the springtime, whenever we started putting our ideas into action and learn from past experiences that is really hard keeping animals over the winter when it's cold out up here.
And there was so much going on when we moved.
Mm-hmm.
Moving across the country to the middle of nowhere, not knowing anyone in the area. It's the second time we've done it. I guess New Orleans wasn't exactly the middle. Well, I mean, it kind of is the middle of nowhere if you look at the geography of the water around New Orleans, but it takes time to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
And having animals, it's not like buying a bunch of beads and then not making your bead work.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain responsibility when you're taking care of any other creature that is more important than your individual ego or I want to do this by now.
Right.
So things didn't necessarily work out the way we planned originally, but I feel like we're in a much more solid place to go to where we want than if we were just kind of winging it and hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we've had extra time to meet people, to do research, to figure out what resources we have and the best way to utilize them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as somebody that's a compulsive planner, like I get an idea and I want to plan it out and just go and fucking do it. So taking that time to sit with the plan and think about it before actually implementing it has been something different, but it's really made me listen to my intuition. about the plans and like what actually makes sense and like what am I being told like will come naturally. Like you said, meeting people and things like that. If I would have just tried to hit the ground running when we didn't know anybody, that would make things a lot harder. But last week we got to go meet with a farmer who has been raising sheep for over 30 some years and actually retired as a teacher from the school that I'm working at.
And knows like half the people at the butcher shop I work at.
Yeah.
Asked me how they were doing, and we know him because of your mom. They went to the same church.
Right. And so,
but we're in this small little community, and we meet 2 people, and it's like, oh, now
they know 4.
Yeah.
So taking that time to get to know the people, like that's our biggest resource is community. And I think that that's a lesson that we learned in New Orleans. So, we moved to New Orleans and building that community.
Yeah. I feel like up here, we've not had to build a community as much as we found a community.
Mm-hmm.
And we did find a community eventually when we moved to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a while.
Right.
Because we were so focused on, we have to have a job and we have so many bills to pay and we have to do this, that it was a couple years before we had enough time to back away from the hustle and say we have a free weekend to go camping and meet people.
Right.
And then we met those people and they hung out together. But over the time we spent with them, it really did form into the community.
Mm-hmm.
And a community that still is existing down there and going on to this day.
Right.
But I feel like up here, we took a little bit to get our jobs, but once we did, we started meeting people and started making those connections.
Mm-hmm.
And we show up on time. We do what we say we're going to do. We hold ourselves honestly. And that's really all it takes.
Yeah. That's gotten
once
really
people
far.
get to know you and then someone says, oh yeah, have you ever heard of this person? It's like, yeah, I know them. They're a good person.
Right. And that is really what I found the way to manifest what you're trying to do is like showing up as a good person. Like that gets you a lot of credibility. And we've been able to go places that we couldn't have imagined because of being credible people, like being who we say we are.
And I feel this is something that took me a little bit to struggle with when we moved, because New Orleans, you can be whatever you want to fucking be.
Mm-hmm.
You can strap a dildo to your forehead and walk down the street naked, and no one's going to bat an eye at it. I've seen it before. But up here, there's at least 3 churches within a 3-block radius of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to work and like everyone goes to church and it's a very Christian community. And I can respect that people up here are going to church and they're trying to do the right thing. And I can honestly be like, yes, we're trying to find this house and it's worked out. And this is something that I've been praying for.
Right.
And they hear praying and they think their thing.
Right.
I mean it more like I've been doing rituals, but it's the same concept.
Right.
But I feel like now I am mature enough that I don't have to come in here and be like, actually, I'm this and this, and I don't really believe in that. Like I can connect with people and see that even though we don't necessarily follow the same path, we have the same goal, and I can have respect for that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I actually have found myself going to prayer group at my school that they have to have before school hours because of the separation of church and state kind of thing. But they'll have a prayer group before school hours, and I go and I tell them what's going on in my life or the people around me, and whether it's a concern or something that I'm grateful for. I go and I participate in spiritual community.
Mm-hmm.
And just because they might have a different view of spirituality, I don't think that means that we can't connect on that.
And I think that's something I learned through paganism. I don't really connect to like the ritual, mass magic, Golden Dawn, Thulian thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really identify with the pagan thing. But there's like, the pagan community is a community of people who follow different beliefs, but they all get together and can find common ground.
Right.
And I don't think the fact that somebody doesn't consider themselves pagan, but considers themselves not even just Christian, anything, as long as they're showing up, they're trying to be a good person, they're trying to better themselves and the community. That's what it's about.
Right.
That is spirituality on a external sense. There's a level of spirituality that's an internal thing.
Right.
And there's part of it that's an external and helping the group and the community.
And I found that a lot of the groups of people that are helping out in the community here are Christian based. They're affiliated with the church. And so if I want to become involved with the community, it's going to be through a church or through 4-H. And they don't necessarily have to know that I don't identify as Christian, I feel, because that's not important.
It's about what there are. And that's not to say there's not like the televangelist and the people in the Christian community that try and take advantage of other people. But I don't feel like I've met anybody that is that. And there are people in the pagan community that operate the exact same way.
Yeah.
The Miss Cleos,
Right. So it's all about being a good person at the end of the day and identifying as part of the community with people that want to help those around them.
That's part of what I really appreciate about the path that you've taken with helping at the school. And even though we don't have kids and that's not necessarily something we want, it's still a way of encouraging the future generations and growing through that. And honestly, and more of a broad scale than if we just had 2.3 kids.
Right.
Like you're having an impression on all of the children in the community. And I think that's really cool. We walk the dog and like kids run up and scream your name and ride their bikes from 2 blocks away so they can show you how fast they can run. That's really neat to see for a place that we've lived at for 9 months.
Right.
And we didn't even mean to live where we're living at.
Right. The other night we got to have a reading event, an after school reading event.
You were a giraffe.
I was a giraffe, and I got to read a story called Giraffes Can't Dance. And while the kids were making their snacks, they were making little giraffes that they could take home with them. And the point of the story I thought was really cool, and it brought tears to my eyes the first time I read it and the first time I read it out loud in front of the students, is that the giraffe isn't really good at dancing. And he's feeling really bad about himself because they go to this party and everyone is dancing so elegantly and naturally. And he's feeling bad about himself. And he goes out to the forest and he meets a cricket. And the cricket tells him that music is anywhere around you, that, you pay attention. It's around you. And as long as you find what you connect to, then you can dance, and that was the example for life. And he looks up actually at the moon and is talking to the moon, the giraffe. And that's when he meets the cricket. And talking about how beautiful the moon can be. And the last 2 pages of the story basically is the giraffe. He figures out how to dance because he dances to his own tune.
Okay.
He finds music out in nature.
The giraffe can dance.
And he learns that he can dance whenever he listens to the music that's around him and not having to think that he has to be some certain way. And the last page is the giraffe saying that we all can dance whenever we find our own tune. And I feel like that's us. here that we're finding our own tune. That because of our spirituality and we like to go out to shows and dress in costumes and have fun.
I'm sure there are drag queens around here, but I've met one.
We haven't met
None of them have sold me tequila.
That it's such a different life that we lead now, but we can still be who we are when we find our own music. And that's super powerful to me, like being here and being someone that moved away from a small town because I felt so limited in who I could be, that I was always some muted version of myself whenever I lived in my hometown.
New Orleans,
people expected me to be
New Orleans was a great place to spread our wings.
Yes.
Because we could be
whoever.
anything.
Yeah, anyone that we wanted to be. And like you said, like people didn't even think that was weird. Well, then when we moved here, I had this idea that we were going to have to mute ourselves to fit in and things like that. And I really haven't found that. That I've been able to be myself and be celebrated for that. Like, that's amazing, being able to like work at the school and be who I am and literally not even knowing the job that I was applying for, what I was supposed to be doing. I've never been a librarian. I've never taught STEM classes before.
iPad technician.
I have never worked professionally with technology. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was the perfect job for me to be in at this point in my life. And no one has asked me to mute myself.
And you have pagan shit hanging in the windows?
We don't have curtains, okay, when we moved in. And so we decided to hang a tapestry up in the window that has a pinnacle in it. And it's got the triple moon symbol with the pinnacle in the middle. And Adam asked me, like, are you sure you want to put this up here? Do you want to keep it here? Like, people can see it.
It's the front window.
And it's not been a problem. So I'm going to keep it up there and we're going to keep being who we are. We're not.
And honestly, I think at this point, if someone did call and say it was a problem, the school would be like, fuck you. Like, you want to come in here and do this work? I don't think it would be that big of a thing. Now that we've gotten up here and like gotten to know people and been around these people.
They know who we are in our hearts.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
Again, showing up and being a good person.
That we are who we are and started this school year not even knowing what was expected of me from my position. And a month ago got awarded with the Staff Member of the Year award. Like,
in front of the whole school.
Wait, I don't have to pretend that I know what I'm doing here. Like, just be me and that's okay. And that to me is a big example of how we should be in our spiritual lives. That the spirits and the ancestors don't expect us to be something that we're not. Just be who you are and we will receive the messages. And we will be given the tools that we need.
I thought it was really powerful, too, that the same day you won the award for Educator of the Year, I also went to the joint Indiana and Illinois Meat Packers and Processing Convention and won an award for the beef jerky that I had to make at my job. And it really, I know around that time, I was kind of having doubt. Like, this is going and this is working, but is this what I really want to do? And having that kind of recognition that, yes, you're doing a good job. It came at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
And both of our awards basically happened at the same time, not just the same day, but at the same time. Those sort of synchronicities are something that I find very important in my personal spiritual practices and beliefs.
Yeah.
Things that, oh, wow, that's such a coincidence. And it's like, well, is it?
I don't think so. That's pretty cool. And I think that is kind of a good stepping stone of where we're trying to go from here. Like, I was raised on a farm and raising animals and showing through 4-H, which is how we met each other, obviously.
And you didn't know shit about it when you started.
No, absolutely not. We knew nothing. We moved out to the country when I was 10. This is a great story that my mom and I were talking about the other day, actually, that we rented this house. We moved out to the country. We rented this old house. It was like run down. We had a wood burning stove. So for those of you who don't know, that means that we didn't have heat in our house. So we spent the fall cutting wood and making sure we had enough wood to get through the winter to keep our house.
There's your
warm.
first mistake. You got to start in the spring.
And we would walk through the woods. We would go on walks as a family, and there were trails out in the woods. And there was this piece of property on the edge of the woods that we would dream about, that one day that would be our home. And there was a big rock out front, a huge limestone rock that was bigger than me at the time. I would have been 9 years old. And we would all sit on the rock as a family. We would sit on the rock and we would look at the property and we would talk about what we were going to do in our future. Like, this is going to be where the house is and the barn will be here and we'll have cows, and like just talk through like our dreams of what we were going to build on this property. And my parents did it. They bought this 7 acres of property and they put a modular home on it, and we built a barn, and
Gorgeous.
we turned it into
You have the ponds.
a homestead.
They were great to fish in.
My parents, through hard work, turned it into a homestead.
You have
And
the trails.
one of the nurses that my dad worked with talked him into buying us each a pig so we could show in 4-H. And none of us had even heard of 4-H before. Because even though my dad grew up out in the country, they didn't really participate in the farming community. With his dad passing away when he was so young, they sold a majority of the cattle, majority of the farm, things like that. And so he wasn't really involved in any of that. And so we each got a pig and we joined 4-H then, and we learned so much. We had to build pens, fences, hot wire on the fence to keep the animals in, like learn about taking care of animals. The first year, some of our cows died and we didn't know why. And we found out that we had a poisonous plant living there, a yew bush.
We're dealing with right now.
Yes.
And know enough that we can deal with it. Hopefully
before we have animals out there. So they ate the yew bushes, which are poisonous to cattle, for anyone listening that might need to know. Yew is actually a very powerful herb that we use in magic, but it's poisonous for ingestion. So, we lost some cows, and how awful it makes you feel as someone who is taking care of animals that they died because you didn't do something right to take care of them. That is something that has always stuck with me. And so now that we are trying to get things set up on our new property to have animals, one of our friends lost a sheep of his because it ate horse nettle berries. And now we know what that looks like. And we were walking our property the other day and we realized that there were horse nettle berries in our pasture where we are getting ready to have lambs. So we are doing research and trying to figure out how to get rid of them before we have the animals there so we can be good stewards of the animals. That's part of raising animals that I feel like people that are disconnected from farming don't understand how much the farmers as the caregivers care.
Yeah.
about the animals. So you're responsible for a living being and you want to raise them to the best of your ability and let them have the best quality of life possible.
I think that there is a level, like people think about factory farming,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a level where it is just about like that output and the most money for the dollars. And yeah, we can lose a few here and there, but we're still making money in the end. And that is something I am really motivated by, is not to be that.
Yes.
To be able to raise wholesome food
Mm-hmm.
for our community that's been treated right, that's been fed right, that was slaughtered and processed in a humane manner.
Mm-hmm.
To continue on people's lives.
To give them nourishment.
Yeah.
Physically and spiritually.
You are what you eat.
Mm-hmm. And we noticed a big difference when we moved up here over the summer, that there were fresh farm stands everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Everywhere. And it was amazing. We ate every day fresh vegetables that were grown by someone who cared about them and cared about how they were raised. And we were buying meat from people who raised it directly. And that was the first time in a long time that we've been able to consume so many products by people who put that spirit and love and care into how they're raising their products.
It wasn't grown in a foreign country and then imported here.
Mm-hmm. Like so many of the things that you get from the grocery store. And I don't want anyone to think that we are belittling them if they're buying their food that way.
You gotta eat.
Period.
You
gotta eat.
But from even when we were in New Orleans and we were selling food, that was a big issue. If I'm making 40 pounds of chili or of soup to sell, I want to make sure that I'm making it with a good intention.
Right.
Valhalla Vittles, that's the reason I named the business that, is because it was a spiritual thing for me as well as like a business. And I feel like this farm is the same thing. I think that I didn't know the whole story that you just said about when you were living at Ron's, which you got to talk about the bear before we finish. But when you were living there and then you were going to the property where you built and sitting on the rock and talking about it, I don't think that I knew that. If so, you told me a long time ago and I don't remember it. But I think that they're, again, talking about synchronicity is a tremendous parallel to that in the house that we're trying to buy that is adjacent to the property that we own and right down the street from the area that we're farming, and also has a pasture and a barn attached to it as well, and was built in 1895, 90 something. Yeah. But there's a house that, like, through all of the moving, every time we've gone by, I've been like, this is going to be our house. And then we finally talked to the lady and she's interested in selling it. And I don't want to put too much out there because it's still up in the air. If things go a different way, we'll figure it out. But there's a synchronicity there that, and the land that we are working and that we do have is your stepdad coming back up and buying back the old farming land. Like, technically, we will be the third generation to be farming animals on this spot.
Right.
There's a big gap in there. But I feel like to honor his memory, that's something too I think is really important. He came back up here and bought this land to farm it and did for a couple of years. And the resources are here. And I feel like it is really special to be able to continue that dream.
Yep. And his father bought the property in 1943. So that was something that we were looking at when we first moved up here. Like, how long has this been in the family? That would have been 80 years at that point. And once it becomes 100 years, there actually are different grants and awards and things like that that are available to help us with that, because we don't have a lot of monetary resources, to put into that. But
just what we make hourly right now.
So we are looking for every opportunity that we can out in the community, because we are wanting to give back to the community. We're not trying to take like whatever we can get or whatever. We want to put back into the land to provide food for the community. And I would love to, as a dream, be able to provide food to like food banks, and when they have the community pickups and they go and pick up the canned goods and things like that.
Just did that at my work.
Set up at in the parking lot.
One of the food banks, we had a bunch of ground beef that we donated. And I mean, they came in like a semi-trailer.
Wow. I would love to be able to do that and to be able to give back to the community in that way and provide food that was lovingly grown and cared for to the kids that are in my community at my school.
That's something that we really helped with the animal side when we were in New Orleans, as far as like there was a disaster somewhere and we would help organize those sorts of things, like the pet food drives, or we're trying to get money to get medicine for these dogs that are sick because they were through a hurricane and they got bit by fleas and ticks.
Oh. It's something that's really important to both of us to emotionally give back to the community. And I feel like this is a way that we can combine our skills and our passions to contribute.
It's the thing about the community is we got to live there. So talk about the bear.
Okay, so when I was a kid, we moved into a rental house out in the country, and there was a corn crib there.
What's a corn crib?
Oh, yeah. A corn crib is a place that they used to store corn in before there were processing facilities where farmers would take the corn to the places that would get processed and things like that. They would store it in a corn crib, which is like an old silo, and
like made of rebar, basically.
Yeah, there were wires around the outside of it because they would just store the
whole
corn on the cobs. Yeah, the whole field corn on a cob instead of pulling it off the cob and storing it in a silo. So they're old, and there was a corn crib on the property, and the guy we rented the house from decided to have recreationally a bear, a cougar, and a mountain lion. No, it was a tiger, a cougar, and a bear.
I remember when I watched Tiger King and you were like...
So, the guy was crazy, obviously, to keep these animals as pets. But there were pictures of him driving around our hometown on a motorcycle with a bear on the back of it. He trained the bear to wrestle, and they would go to bars and they would have like exhibition wrestling matches between the man and the bear. Before we moved to the home, whenever I was a little girl, the tiger got out and mauled a little boy. And he ended up being okay, thank God. He is one of my dad's closest friend's sons. But they had to get rid of the other animals when that happened. But he was allowed to keep the bear. So he moved out of town and we rented the house from him. And so the bear lived there when we were renting the house, and he told my mom, if she could help take care of him, that'd be great. He ate dog food, at the time. And in the winter, whenever he was getting ready to hibernate, my mom decided that he needed to have oatmeal. So she would make him oatmeal every day, and we would feed him fresh grapes and things like that. he loved all those things. So, we made sure that he was well taken care of while we lived there.
He had to live in a little.
In a corn crib and a cage, his life. And we wouldn't have done it, but we made sure that he was cared for the best way that he could be. And I think that that's a good example of how I was raised, to be a good steward of everything that's around you.
That was while you were making plans to have cows.
To move to other places.
And those cows had a great place to live. They have their own pond. Apparently cows can swim.
Yeah, we learned that. There was a hot wire that was across the part that had the pond on it, but they would go under it and swim and occasionally get out. And for anyone that has raised cattle, you know that it can be quite fun when the cows get out, trying to corral them and get them back into the pasture. But my point,
call and say the goats out again.
We got a ticket from the sheriff because the goat was out in the road, and my dad had to explain to the sheriff that goats cannot be contained. That was how I grew up. So if anybody has any question of why I'm an animal person, it is definitely how I was raised. You can go back and listen to the animal magic episode. That is always where I felt at home. Typically, when I was growing up, we would have 5 dogs at a time. And that was because they were dogs that people didn't want. And my dad would just bring them home and we would take care of them. And they were part of the family, literally like my brothers. So again, it is part of how I was raised, that if you're going to keep an animal, that you take the best care of them that you can, and that they're part of who we are in our family. And that's extended even if you are eating them. I know that that's very controversial for some people who are vegetarian and things like that, but it's part of my spiritual path that I honor them as much as possible.
You are what you eat.
That's
even
right.
Our dinner tonight is pork chops from a home-raised hog.
Mm-hmm.
And the bacon, too.
They lived out in a pasture and was spoiled.
Very spoiled. Ate some of our leftover pumpkins and squash from Thanksgiving, Halloween time.
Mm-hmm. But we do the best that we can with what we have. And I feel like that is something that we always keep to our hearts, no matter what we are doing, no matter what the venture is. So we do the best we can with what we have, because we love and care.
The most honest to our true selves.
And be good stewards.
That's part of what I really love about you, is that we do follow the same path. Sometimes we have our own things, but the general direction, I'm like, this is something I care about. And you're like, this is something that I also care about.
Mm-hmm. And we do it together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really powerful. Again, it's back to that community.
Have fun while we're doing it.
Absolutely.
We always have fun.
And no matter what the community is that we bring into it, we make it fun for others too. So they want to keep participating and coming back.
Mm-hmm. But it's something that's important to do as well.
Yeah.
It's not just like, we're going to go to the bar and we're going to get like so drunk that we don't remember what happened.
Right.
We're doing things that better ourselves, most importantly, but also better the people around us as well. That's important to me.
And I think a big part of that did come from our ancestors, from both of our families. Like, we both come from families that care about the community around them. And talking about bringing fun into it, like, your grandpa is always joking about everything. Like,
I have some stories there for sure.
To bring fun and making even a bad situation seem better.
We would. So I'm going to tell you a story about my grandpa. Our phone number, when we were growing up, we lived with my grandparents for a while.
Mhm.
We moved up from Georgia for, I don't know, we moved up in second grade. And then my parents bought the house that my sister lives in now
Mhm.
when I went to middle school in sixth grade. So
Okay.
that's what, like 3 years that we lived with my grandparents when we moved up. Their house phone number was 1 digit away from the local Pizza Hut. And we would, every now and then, it was like the prefix.
Mhm.
It was like if it's 773 or 776. So every now and then we would get a call of someone trying to call Pizza Hut. And my grandpa did not like when people called our phone while we were eating dinner, and he had to stop eating dinner. We had like 6 people eating dinner. We every night had a family dinner together, even if we had
Right.
4-H or we had Boy Scouts or we had Girl Scouts. We found a time. We
Right.
figured out something to eat where everyone could sit down and eat dinner together.
Mhm.
So he just started answering the phone anytime after like 6 o'clock. Pizza Hut, how can I help you? And every now and then, someone would be trying to call Pizza Hut, and he'd take their whole order and say, "Oh yeah, do you want like breadsticks or whatever?" And he'd say, "All right, well, if we're not there in 30 minutes, the pizza's free." And then he would hang up and come back, and we would keep eating dinner
Mhm. Right.
and laugh about it.
Right.
It was rough growing up in my family, I tell you what. Another 20 years, I'm gonna have like Rodney Dangerfield jokes, you know. But that's where I got my sense of humor from.
Right. Believe it or don't.
Believe it or no. And it got to the point where like that was just the joke. People would be like, "Oh yeah, we're here for Pizza Hut," when they would like come over for dinner, because every Sunday we would have a big party. My family was really into NASCAR. NASCAR races
Right.
are on Sunday. So we would like chop firewood before and after the race, and then everyone would be taking naps during the race. But don't change the channel.
I'm watching that.
That'll wake everybody up. Just rest in my eyes.
Right. But I think another big part of that too is, finding humor in every situation,
Mhm.
but also the importance of gathering
Yep,
as a family.
definitely.
And I think that that's where you learned your love of cooking,
Mm-hmm.
is because then you
Oh,
can
wow.
provide food for
Yeah.
people in your family, and people would come over, and it was like part of what you did,
Yep.
and you would talk about, how did you make
That's-
this and what did you include? And
How I learned to cook. One of my
Mhm.
favorite things that people ask me is, "Oh, did you go to like culinary school or something?" I'm like, "No, I just have family and paid attention and asked questions." And
now I get to
even my
cook
job
stuff.
now as a butcher, like I know how to cut ribeyes and I know how to cut sirloin steaks because my grandpa
Yeah.
would buy whole ones when they were on sale and then show me how to cut them down, and would wrap them and put them in the freezer. And
Mm-hmm.
now I don't have enough freezers,
Right.
which has been a persistent problem in my family for at least 3 generations.
And also seeing
And
what
If that's the kind
Yeah.
of generational trauma I have to deal with, I really can't complain.
when you go to the store and you come home with a good cut of meat that was on sale, we always joke about, oh man, Grandpa Arbuck will be proud.
He would be. And he is.
Yes,
I have no doubt about that.
he definitely is. And I think that he's going to be really proud when we can raise our own food.
Well, because that's what he did. Not when I was a kid, because he was a grandpa by then. But
Mhm.
when my parents grew up, they lived in a farm
Mhm.
and raised their own animals. And
Mhm.
even when I was a kid, we had like an 1.5 acre garden.
Mm-hmm.
My first job was sitting at the roadside stand selling produce. When the Grateful Dead were in town playing, I would sell like tie-dye.
Don't forget the tie-dye cookies.
I'm not kidding. Me and my sister made like $450 selling cookies to deadheads over 3 days one summer.
Always a hustler.
That's why I fit in New Orleans.
To provide a service that people want, though.
If anyone wants to buy my mixtape, I do have a band camp. It's Atlas Melt. I have a couple of mixtapes up there.
Also, can people buy your feeds, though?
Yeah.
How do they find you for feed buying?
I don't know.
Adam Moose on Facebook, right?
It's Fiskr.
Right?
Edit that out. Cut that. You can go to Valhalla Vittles. And if you message me there, depending on what you want and how much you want to pay for it, I make great jerky, snack sticks. I have all sorts of cured products that bail's great. If you want to pay for a styrofoam chest and dry ice and all that shit, I can mail you fresh meat too.
Well, we got some trips coming up here shortly. So we're going to be going to Tennessee very soon to help our friends Jackie and Cliff get
Friends
their
of the
moving
show.
going. Friends of the show. Absolutely. We talked to Miss Jacqueline Garza Lang on their big trek, and we're going to be spending a lot of time down in Tennessee, I know, coming up here shortly. So
I really feel honored that we're able to help Jackie and Cliff, because when we moved from Louisiana to Indiana, I was recovering from surgery and literally could not pick up like a beer. It was bad. So the whole time that we were moving, Jackie especially helped you so much. And then when we did move up here, because we were from Indiana originally, we had friends that were able to come and help us move in and help us settle. And it's one thing to move from one place to another, but when you do, you're worried about getting your kitchen unpacked and getting your bathroom unpacked and setting up the couch. But having friends that came up for a weekend and were like, we're going to help you hang pictures on the wall. That was a big deal when we moved. There's a difference between having a place that's a house and having a place that's a home.
Yep.
So
And it's
I'm
really
really
hard.
looking forward to helping them kind of settle,
Yep.
because they're doing that thing that we have done, and they did it when they moved to Louisiana the same way we did. They moved
Right.
for a job where they moved somewhere and they didn't know anybody at all.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to going and helping them transition.
Yep. And part of that that we've talked about is trying to help find local areas so they can go hiking, spend time
Because we got to take our dog Zelda.
Yep. And we know how helpful that was for us just to decompress. Like, all right, gonna go walk the dog.
Yeah.
Let's go to the reservoir and hike in the woods.
It don't have to be long. It can be like where I take an hour, where I go here, oh, we need to go to the store. But when you just first move and you're trying to get set up and
in your mind,
trying
you
to do
think of all the
this,
things you have to do in your house, and you don't
but you don't.
think about taking care of yourself.
If your food that's supposed to be cold is cold, and you have a place to sit down and you have a place to lay down and sleep.
Go take a hike in the fucking woods, right?
And especially, I love you, Jackie, but you're that kind of person. Like, going out and doing stuff and being physical and being active, that has really become a large part of who Jackie is, and she has been very inspiring to me. I a lot of times go to the gym before I go to work, but every time I wake up and say, I don't really want to get out of bed right now. I can lay here for 2 hours. I hear Jackie's voice saying, you could, but do you really want to?
Right. Right.
But it's hard when you move somewhere because you don't know places
Right.
to go.
And it seems
And
overwhelming.
where she's moving is such a pretty area to go and go hiking to.
Yeah.
The places we go hiking, it's like the bottom of a dam and it's flat and you're tripping over roots. But Nashville, there's like mountains and waterfalls and caves, and it's the place where they're moving that we go to go on vacation already.
Yeah. So any listeners that are in the Nashville area, definitely hit me up, Reverend Raven here, and we can go plan a hiking trip with Jackie and her family too. So
How far is
it'll be
Nashville from
amazing.
Chattanooga?
Just a few hours from Adriana in Chattanooga too. So just a little call out there from Fiskr. Hey, Dre, you got to come join us on a hike. Bring that wild dog too.
You got to do another episode next week, right?
Yep, exactly. So anyway, really looking forward to going on a trip because this is the first trip that we've gone on besides to visit family in a long time
Well,
since we moved.
I was telling that to Bimbo,
Mhm.
our friend. I was like, talking
In
to him.
Alabama.
He lives in Alabama. I was like, oh, it's been like 9 months that we've lived here and we've not gone further than, we've not gone out of state.
Right.
We went to Michigan once,
Yep.
but that where we live doesn't really count.
Yep. So looking forward to
That was
going
a
on
day
a trip.
trip. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
we haven't even been like camping for the weekend,
Yeah. So time to go.
which is not where
Spread our wings.
not where we have been. But again, there's a give and take when you move somewhere new.
Yep.
We've had
vacation
job.
time,
We
yeah.
haven't had vacation time.
Now we're going to be
When
close
we
enough that we can do things for a long weekend.
Had vacation time. We've had other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Traveling has been a big part of our past and
A big part of our
passions.
future goals too.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to continuing that with our next trip. And to do something so important and cool, I'm just really looking forward to that, having the opportunity to extend that, So many dreams and goals that we've talked about involve traveling. And even though we are planning our homestead and settling into one location, that doesn't mean that we can't still travel. And I've already been thinking about, even though we don't have the animals yet, because I am a compulsive planner who can help us take care of them when we're out of town and things like that. So,
And it's nice with the connections and knowledge we have through the community and through 4-H. Being able to find people who care. Even my nephews, like my nephew showed his first pig last summer and he's doing it again, but he needs a place to like keep his pigs that he's going to show. And we have an opportunity, even it's kind of a far drive for him to be able to do that, but to help him with that, if nothing else.
Yep. We'll see what happens over the next year because he still has another year before he's in 4-H. So,
but you really helped him like with the showing that he did.
That was so cool.
He would not have, if it was not for you, he would have just been standing there waiting to meet people and he would have gotten distracted and bored. But you took him around and you were showing him different pigs and explaining the difference, and he went into the show ring and did a great job. And we realized it was like 25 years that we've known each other.
Yep. On that day when we were at the fair. So for anyone that doesn't know, we met at 4-H, but when Adam was in charge of the Coke stand, and that was vending.
Yeah, Coca-Cola.
Right.
Bolivian marching powder.
but he was in charge of vending at the fair, and I would help him on Saturday night because I showed hogs all day on Saturday, and also was involved with the public speaking competition. I wasn't able to be a day manager, even though they tried to recruit me over and over again. He was in charge, and I would go help him at the end of the day.
My first year when we were 14. We were both 14 when we met.
And it was his first year in charge, and I helped him work at the Coke stand at the tractor pull strip, and he helped me walk my sheep at the end of the day.
That's not a euphemism, by the way. We legitimately walked sheep. Then we started walking too fast, and they started jumping because they were running. Then we had to run to keep up with them.
And that was Adam's first experience with agriculture animals,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Yep.
I was all into dogs at that point.
But that's why it worked for us, because we were involved in different things, different passions and different projects and things like that. So we just supported each other. We were friends and we supported each other.
Yep.
And that's what's really cool.
I would even take my break on Saturdays to come and watch you do public speaking. And you got to talk about the chair you're sitting in right now, too.
Oh, I forgot about that. This is from the 2000 Hamilton County 4-H Fair champion Hereford Goat. I decided after I had been in 4-H a few years that I was going to show some of the breeds that didn't maybe have as many pigs in the competition, because then I'd have a little bit better chance at winning. So even though maybe I didn't have access to as good of animals as other people or as good of feed or whatever, I didn't know as much of what I was doing. I was smart enough to know if you competed in the group with a fewer number of contestants that you would have a chance to do better. So I started showing Hereford hogs, which is a little bit rarer breed. And this was my second to last year in 4-H that I got a champion. And the chair is embroidered with my name, and I still have it after many moves. So I'm sitting in the kitchen while Adam's cooking dinner in this chair, and we're just, having a good time chatting and reflecting. And this has been really cool. I'm enjoying reflecting and planning both at the same time. I think that's a really big power of Pisces season, is that since it's the end of the astrological year, we are recalling on all of the things that have happened and the lessons that we've learned and things like that. But we have a higher power of being able to look back and reflect, but also with that eagle's eye view. We talk about taking a higher look so we can get a better perspective. But with the Pisces season, it's a more intuitive look. It's a deeper look.
Can we talk about how crazy the dreams have been this Pisces season?
Oh my God. Just insane. The dreams have been crazy over the last couple weeks, especially. And trying to figure out, is this a symbol? Is this a sign? What is this message? What am I supposed to learn from it?
Why are there two of these?
But
does that mean I should have two, or does it mean I shouldn't have two?
Right.
Why am I dreaming about this person, but not just once, but 3 nights in a row?
Yep. And a couple nights ago, I had a dream that included our old neighbor who was very violent towards us, that made us have to move from our first home in New Orleans. He was in my dream, and he was demanding that we gave him the home that we lived in. And I was trying to explain to him that we didn't own the home, that it wasn't ours to give him. And thinking about it and reflecting back, I've been thinking a lot about this house that, we were chatting about earlier, the old brick house that's attached to the property.
We've never lived in a home that's ours?
Yeah, never. We've never owned a home. And so I don't
the
know
best
if
it's been our parents' home, but usually it's been an apartment or a landlord.
Yeah.
or-
But I was wondering from that dream, is it because I've been thinking about the house that we really want to buy, to have like that yearning of having something that is ours, that is our home, and being threatened by someone who is so obviously a threat, at that point in time, that I'm never going to see again, hopefully.
Go for it.
But like that's not relevant to our life now, like in the house that we're in now and whatever. Him, like specifically, but it was a threat, like where we don't
We're still
know.
having that back and forth where
Not the
we're trying to
instability.
get this house, but we don't have it yet.
Right, like the instability of not knowing where we're gonna live in the future. Like we have our lease till September, but still, like I don't want to be here past, and I'd really like to not have to keep renting.
It
But
would be nice to pay money and get something out of it.
yeah, so
other
I'm
than
just
a place to live month to month.
I was just wondering about the meaning of that dream. And also he picked up a bird, and I don't remember what kind of bird that was, and he literally clipped its wings.
It was a live bird.
Yeah, and he literally like clipped its wings with hedge cutters.
Was it a white-winged dove?
No, it was a dark colored bird. So I don't know, and I don't remember, and I'm not great at recalling dreams. So that's what sucks about when they're like so like memorable, because it's not normal that I remember them.
I feel like you remember the parts that are important, though.
Yeah.
There's always little details that you lose, but when
But I'm like
it's
clipping
been,
the
like,
wing of a
when
bird.
it's been 4 hours since I woke up and I still remember a specific detail of a dream, I feel like that is important regardless of whatever I'm supposed to take it as. I don't usually know. Or the flip side is I'm like, I know.
I get it, bro.
Yeah.
Like when you pull a card from a tarot deck or something, and you're like, I got it, man.
Yeah.
Quit busting my balls.
I'm working on it.
Exactly.
But it seems like when you have a dream, there's always one part that sticks out.
Yeah.
The longer it goes, at least for me, the more the details I forget, but like an eroding stone.
Like
the crystal stays and the matrix washes away.
Yeah. So how do you use the intuition to help make your plans? Are those in your dreams or?
I just do what I feel like I should. I follow my intuition.
But that's usually through your waking thoughts or through your dreams or what?
I would say more than anything, it's through the moment.
Okay. Like moment to moment?
Yeah. I always have like a running script in my head of like the ideas of the future that I want to do and my goals and things.
Okay.
But there is so much going on that just like those dreams, there's those things that stick out.
Okay.
I've thought about 7 million ideas, but here's 3 or 4 that I keep returning to and keep thinking about.
Okay.
I'm always like telling a story in my head.
Okay.
And that story sometimes is about how things have been. Sometimes it's about how things will be. Sometimes it's about how things could be.
Like alternate pathways?
Yeah. But I feel like the more I think about different pathways, the more pathways I have.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Like the more options.
Yeah.
Like alternative.
Sometimes you turn a corner and you didn't even realize there was an alley there and you walk towards it.
Okay.
But if you can look at Google Maps and see that there's 7 different routes to get to where you're wanting to go, and you can look
the best 3.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Got it.
you gotta work on your feet.
Mm-hmm. So
But
just
that
sitting
doesn't
around.
mean that you just have to like wing everything
Mhm.
and not make plans, because that's not going to get you where you're trying to go. It'll get you wherever.
To somewhere.
So somewhere.
Right.
And it might not be anywhere.
Or it might be back where you started, right?
Yep. But again, like when we moved up here, we thought we had a place to live for a few years that we weren't really going to have to spend money on. We thought we had a lot of resources that we didn't end up having.
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole like 11-page business plan about how we can take what we have and we can farm it, and we can raise microgreens, and we can do chickens, and we can go to farmers markets. And a lot of that didn't end up working out at the time.
Right.
But now it's been about a year, not quite, but like 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those ideas that I had and the things that I'd researched and plotted out when I wasn't able to help pack and move, because of my surgery, had to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had my ideas running, and I was writing things down and making outlines and writing documents and making plans. A lot of that now, 9 months later, I'm like, oh, this is actually helpful. I've done the research. I know this. Now that I don't have the time
Right.
to sit here and watch YouTube videos for 8 hours a day. But I've already done that, so I know about sheep. I know if we want to like go to restaurants and try and get our product in there, here's a whole list of like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Right.
Obviously, it's not something we've done yet. There's room for refinement and room for improvement.
But we've got that basic information. Like we already did the research.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
put together
because
a
I
basic
could
plan.
see the writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't go out. I thought by now that we'd have sheep, that we'd have chickens, that we'd be starting to get rabbits this spring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a timeline planned, and the timeline didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall ideas are still very functional, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to plan for the immediate future. You have to plan for tomorrow.
Right.
But you also have to keep an eye out for a decade from now.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes the plans will insert themselves in a different part in the timeline.
When we moved to New Orleans, I did not think that I would be going out and playing music and getting paid for it.
Right.
I did not think that I would like be making money by selling people food and going to festivals and going to bars and
Mm-hmm.
doing home delivery of food.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me directly to where I am at now with the butcher shop,
Right.
and also where I'm at now with farming. Like I said, the farming
Mhm.
thing is like, yes, I can give you 40 pounds of pulled pork, but I don't know what this pig that I'm buying,
Mm-hmm.
like this box of 5 pork shoulders from the store, that's probably 5 different pigs,
Mm-hmm.
like how they were raised, what they were fed, what they went through. I have found that it's important for me to know. I know how these pork chops that we're about to eat were raised.
Right. And that's important
I-
to me.
Slaughtered them, and I
Mhm.
handled the fucking butchering, and from when they were born to when they're on my plate, I know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all through the pagan thing too. Like the group of friends that we met, the bulls specifically taught me how to butcher
Mm-hmm.
and said this is a thing. And then I came up and I helped our friend who lives up here
Mm-hmm.
butcher some pigs, and was like, wow, you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me show you this. And his mom was like, I don't think I could do this every day. And I was like,
I think I could.
I could.
Yeah, I remember.
Like, I really appreciate this process.
And also the thing that, you're talking about Bull demonstrating techniques, but him also showing like how important it is, how they're raised, and that when you do the dispatching, that it is humane and you want it to go as quickly as possible, and that they don't know what's happening, and that you are respecting them before and after.
When we were doing that, it was very ritualistic as well.
Mm-hmm. That was a big impression on me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, I really care how this is done.
And it was like a ritualistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was, this is an animal, we're having a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this as part of the ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
We are then consuming this animal as part of that ceremony to ensure good luck for the upcoming time.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of got into it because it was like, well, I might be cooking this animal. But it was also, I don't want to cook this animal if it was like not treated well.
Right.
That goes against the purpose of having a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. And I think
as opposed to like if you go to Walmart and you buy your meat and this is just a cow that was on an assembly line.
Mm-hmm. That was fed out in a feedlot.
Mm-hmm. And sold for the highest bid, but still not very high. And it kind of wraps back around to where I'm excited to be raising not just animals, like we have plans for vegetable gardens and we already have herbs growing.
Mm-hmm.
Being in control of the food that you consume, I think, is one of the most human things you can do. And it was not very long ago that you didn't eat food if it wasn't raised within, I don't know, a mile or two of you.
Mm-hmm.
And not long before that, you didn't eat food unless someone found it or someone killed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the agricultural revolution did not happen that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debate on how long ago it happened. I'm trying to get into that, but we can sometime.
But the idea is that you know where the things are produced that you are consuming.
Been less than 100 years that we have bought meat off of styrofoam wrapped in plastic.
Mm-hmm.
But no one alive knows anything different. Because of, the lifespan of people. Allegedly.
But I think that that's something
the
that's
Highlanders.
That's important to re-educate people in the community about where their food comes from, and that there are people out there who are genuinely concerned about how the food is raised and where it comes from and what goes into it and
how it's processed, and
educating the future communities about that. And teaching their parents that it matters.
Multiple degrees in that.
So it's time to, but it's time to utilize that though. It's time to not just keep that knowledge for myself because I don't want to be involved in people that don't care.
Yeah. We knew this and you don't have to work for Tyson.
Yeah. I got to figure out the how, but that's part of the next steps of the plan. So part of that listening to your intuition, because I've been pushing away working for companies that I don't agree with, their morals and their ethics for 20 years.
Because you did that. I did too. Not worth it.
Yeah. So we are getting ready to ram right into Aries season.
I see what you did there.
What is the highlights of the things we're going to do? We're talking about plans and whatnot. What are we going to do?
I mean, it's depending on what calendar you want to look at, it's the start of the new year.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like right now we are finishing out last year. About a year ago, I had my surgery and we weren't even like talking about moving to Indiana. We were talking about moving out of the city, but it has been about a year to the day minus a week or so that I had my injury and we had to have surgery, and I stayed up here for a couple of weeks staying with my mom and grandma and realized that my grandma was getting old and so is my mom, and it was really nice to spend time with them, and I wanted to do that as much as I could. So I feel like at the start of Aries season last year is kind of when the seed was planted that we were going to move
Come
up
back
here and
home.
we're going to live this life. We're going to come back home.
Even though this isn't anywhere we ever lived before.
Yeah.
It seems odd that it's home, but
people are like, why did you move out here? And I'm like, I mean, I can tell you a bunch of reasons, but it made sense at the time, basically.
Yep.
And I really like it out here. If we'd moved back to Indianapolis, like,
Yep. We didn't want to be
I
there.
didn't want to be there. I have lived in the city for like 15 years.
Too long.
Yeah. So I feel like now we've moved up here. We've kind of gotten our footing. We've established ourselves in the community. We figured out a viable path to go to. So the next year is going to be getting the farm going and getting ourselves away from having hourly wages and more towards getting back to that hustle.
Doing the work.
When we moved to New Orleans, we hustled, but it was the hourly thing at first. You got a job and I got a job, and then we got there and we figured things out and we made those. You became a lot more than a receptionist, and I became a lot more than a dog daycare professional. And the progress that we've made in the past 9 months compared to where it took us 3 years to get to in New Orleans.
Yeah, I would agree.
We have a lot more experience on our hands. We have a better idea of who we are.
Yeah.
And what we want to be.
Our skills and our values. Our spirits.
And it makes me look forward to where we're going to be at 10 years from now and 20 years from now. Because, I don't know, we get as old as we can, I hope. But I never want to stop growing. I never want to stop improving. I never want to stop looking at what we're doing and saying this is serving us now, but what will serve us better in the future.
Right.
I'm not saying we have to be fucking billionaires. It'd be great if that happened somehow, don't get me wrong. But I don't expect that. I don't think we need that.
Yeah. Just need to make comfortable wages to where we can be contributing members of our community.
Which honestly is not been a problem.
I want to be able to donate to the causes that I care about and whatnot.
And not just donate, but help them too.
Yep. Help them with time and resources.
That's something that we've been talking a lot about recently, is because there are so many community resource programs, and where the best place to focus our time and energy is, rather than getting involved with 5 things that could do a little bit. What's the 1 or 2 things that we could focus on that would help out a lot? And it's been interesting moving to a new place where, I know that when we moved to Louisiana, I never really found 4-H down there like there was up here. There were fairs and there were 4-H programs, but we moved back up here and I am back to like volunteering, judging dog shows and that kind of thing.
But why is that important to us?
Because
it's
it's
important.
helping with not just the community, but it's helping with the future of the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's helping kids learn how to be responsible and how to follow through on things, how to look at a task and say, this is the requirements and this is what I need to do. I might sound like an old fart, but working at a job for the first time in like 7 years where I have to work with other people
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not in charge of those people. My boss is in charge of those people and I can't just say like, you're fucking up. You can't come back tomorrow. It is really weird to see like what the work ethic of some of these youngins are. And there are some of them that don't have that problem that are great, but we have problems in my work with people showing up to work, not just on time, like, oh, I'm 5 minutes late, but like, you're supposed to be here at 8 and you're walking in at 10:30.
Yeah, that's wild.
But it's a skill job and they have the skills. It's not like if, oh, you fire me, what are you going to do?
Right.
And I feel like I could take that same position, but I don't feel like that would make me be the best person that I could be.
Right. You don't agree with that. Like,
I don't
that's
want
not
to
your
be that
work ethic.
person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that has been interesting. But I feel like a lot of those values were instilled in me by things like the Boy Scouts and by things like 4-H, where I had responsibilities when I was a kid. So when I was 14, it was like, oh yeah, I understand that like you have to take care of animals and you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care and you can help younger people
Mm-hmm.
be the same ideals that you have.
Right.
Not be the same ideals, but be raised to the same ideals.
Yeah.
But like training a dog, if you don't tell a dog what you're supposed to do, they're not going to know.
Right.
And if you just say, oh, these young kids today, they don't know what they're doing, so I'm not going to try and help them or try and show them what to do.
That's not fair.
What are they supposed to learn then?
Right. And how does that help the society overall?
Yeah.
Like giving up on them without even trying.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay. Like that doesn't benefit any of us, you know? I think that's a good thought for moving forward, is that we have to be the best that we can be so the world can be the best it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of that is being a leader, but also an example in the community.
Yep.
I think that the word leader has a lot of connotations that sometimes people think that's the person that's standing up front who's the loudest and like everyone's saying yay and rallying behind. But
and
they're the person that is showing others what they should do.
there can only be one leader. But that doesn't mean that every individual in the community can't put their best foot forward.
But they can be leaders. Everyone can be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's part of it, is showing everyone that they can be a leader. You don't have to be someone special to be a leader. Like, but everyone is special. Like everyone can be a leader.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's part of it, you know? I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah, dinner's been done for a minute, but we've had very good conversation, but I also have to work at 6 in the morning. I really need to eat and go to sleep.
Well, we really appreciate your time this evening, Fiskr. Thanks for fishing with us, bouncing ideas back and forth, and
Hi, Susan. You know I'm down.
ready to ram it forward. On that note, stay magical.
I love you all. Take
Stay
care.
magical.
Stay magical.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Magical Aspirations. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Magical Aspirations to keep up with the latest and the greatest from Annalisa, Adriana, and Reverend Raven, and to join in on the Magical Aspirations conversations. Come check out our website, magicalaspirations.com, to find bonuses from our guests, our Magical Aspirations blog, and to reach out to our magical hosts with questions, comments, reviews, or ideas for future episodes. We are so grateful for each and every one of you listening. Thank you again, and as always, stay true to your magic.